said, I believe you. She said, you were dead. You were clinically dead. And it had mind speak, and I hear, I came for you all those years ago. You speak of me too much. I will see you soon. My wife looked at me and she went, oh my God. She goes, Matt, that is so freaky. It's like you just read part of your life story. And to make the situation worse, the being was doing the old, I'm gonna get you kind of hands. He was able to look through the house with his eye. This thing had stopped and turned around and looked at him. And where there was no mouth or anything, this thing smiled at him and turned back around and started to walk even closer to her. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Emch. I am from Youngstown, Ohio, and if any of you remember me from when I did an interview with Josh 2 years ago, I spoke about my experience when I was 14 years old with my 3 friends. We had gone down to the Youngstown, Ohio steel mills, which were old, dilapidated, obviously not in use, steel mill buildings in the downtown area again of Youngstown. And we had an experience, or more or less an attack of something that crawled off the pages of myth and legend and lore, something that, we never thought in a million years could ever happen. It was what they call now a dogman. What we saw it back then was a werewolf. It was something that to this day, I and a friend of mine have PTSD from. 2 of my great friends, my best friend and another one of my very close friends, are unfortunately no longer here with us. My other friend that is still here has severe psychological problems dealing with what went down even to this day. And I'm here today to talk about other things that are going on with my great friend and brother Josh Nanokio from What Lurks Beneath. And I also have, since having this great opening, interview with Josh that really helped me, I have to be honest. And I really want to say this for those that have had experiences that have caused a lot of psychological and emotional damage. Opening up, talking about, what's happened to you instead of bottling it up and hiding away really helps. I really believe it. And I started a YouTube channel called Planet 412, Planet 412. And I have been in touch with countless people since starting the channel, thanking me for talking to Josh and doing a number of interviews over the years and talking about my experience. People that have said that they were going to take theirs to the grave and how much damage it caused them hiding it away. Well, they opened up, they told their experience, and it's helped them deal with it. So today, what I'm going to be doing with Josh is I'm going to be talking about other things that's happened to me through the years. And we're going to go back a little farther. One of the big things that have gone on and that's talked about these days is family trees. Some families, you can go back pretty far and see maybe on one side or both sides of the family supernatural, paranormal types of events that occur. Well, in my family, on my mother's side, which is the Lebanese side, I'm half Lebanese, half German Irish, not the Emch side, but my mother's maiden name was Nora, Nohra. That's the Lebanese side. There was also, and still to this day, some paranormal things that have occurred. And I've had some other things go on over the last few years. So going back, what really has interested me is I've done a lot of research lately about how these families have these events that have been occurring, throughout the years. And the more I've looked into it, the more I've been finding out it's much more common than people would believe. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's both sides, but more often than not, it's just one side that there is a lot of paranormal events. Like I said just a minute ago, the Lebanese side of my family, there's been things going on from what I had learned for many years. My great uncle and my great aunt, when they were living in Lebanon, and obviously my grandmother, I don't believe she was born yet. The day that this event occurred, my great aunt, her name was Heltu Alice, and that just means aunt in Lebanese, Heltu. She told me and my younger brother and my mom numerous times. I wanted to hear it every time we went there. And she would speak, broken English, and my mom spoke some Lebanese, but the way my mom really well worked it was she would translate everything. She was so good at it. And what my great aunt told us was this one day, her mother wasn't there. She had gone off. I don't know where she had went. Her father was outside. He was working the garden or whatever. And she was inside by herself. She was playing with toys or something, whatever she was doing. And in this house, they were next to a stream or a river. And in the home, they had two doors, the front door, and you'd go through, and she had said it was kind of like at an angle. So you'd go through and you'd see at an angle the back door, but the back door was sealed. You couldn't go out the back door. And in the front door never locked. So there's a reason I'm talking about this. So she was on the floor playing, and she said she kept noticing out of her peripheral vision that she'd noticed like something moving, and she would look, and when she looked, there was nothing there. And she'd do a double take once in a while, but nothing when she'd look. She'd play again, and then she'd see it a little bit more clear, and she'd look, and what was that? I know I saw some, but nothing. She did it about 3-4 times. And then finally, the last time she did it, she looked, and she had noticed, she said, as she was turning, she noticed real movement, like somebody was walking. She thought it was her father. And when she turned, she had noticed this tall, shadow, pitch black human figure, but much taller than a human, walking towards her with green eyes. She said it did not have a nose or a mouth. All she noticed was these green, bright eyes. And to make the situation worse, the being was doing the old, I'm going to get you kind of hands, walking towards her. And of course, having a child, seeing something like that, the immediate response to that is screaming and calling of her father, who immediately dropped what he was doing and ran for the back or the front door, dropped what he was doing and ran for the front door. As I said before, though, the front door didn't lock. It wouldn't open. For whatever reason, this being caused that front door, or maybe another being that they couldn't see was pushing that door shut. but he couldn't get it open. And he heard his daughter screaming, and he is pounding on this door. He's kicking it and trying his hardest to get in there. Finally, what he did is he had noticed close to the door, he had a cinder block. He picked this cinder block up and he starts pounding on the door. Finally, she said that she had noticed, like the door split, a piece of wood flew off of it in the house. And he was able to look through the house with his eye. And she saw him. She passed the being. She saw her father with his eye looking through. And this thing had stopped. According to her father, he told her and the rest of the family after it occurred that this thing stopped and turned around and looked at him. And where before there was no mouth or anything, this thing smiled at him and turned back around and started to walk even closer to her. Well, he started to kick at the door. He dropped, I assume he dropped the cinder block. She didn't really specify that part, but he was kicking the door again. And finally, the door broke open and he runs as fast as he can to grab this being. And literally before his hand touches this thing, it just poof dissipates like a cloud or, just like a shadow, just poof. And that was basically it. That was the only time they ever had something like that. And my great aunt, when she was talking in the broken English and Lebanese, and the one thing that I remember hearing, and my mom had told us too, is she had kept saying Jinn, and everybody I'm sure already knows what a Jinn is. A Jinn is what they call it. And what was extremely disconcerting about the event as well, as I told you before, they lived really, really close to a stream or a river. So a lot of, dampness at the house and all around the house and the area. Well, where he had been kicking at the door had really been, really soaked up a lot of water and dampness, and it buckled and broke down there. A big, huge splinter of this wood had actually broke off and went into his leg. And 3 days later, he died from gangrene, which was horribly tragic. And also, you could say that this being basically caused his death. So that is a true story. That is what happened. And that's as far back as I know in our family. But I am very aware of all kinds of different events that have been going on with my family on the Lebanese side. I'm going to try and find this picture for you. I want to mention this. So within the last 10 years, my father died of pancreatic cancer. My uncle, he passed away from heart complications, and my aunt passed away from other health complications. We had a family get together at Mill Creek Park, which I've mentioned before. I don't know if you remember, Josh, when I had talked about in our first interview, the Mahoning River, which actually goes through Youngstown. It actually goes past the steel mills. And if you follow that river, the Mahoning River, it'll take you through Mill Creek Park. And we had talked about how that Dogman may have, followed that river. So in Mill Creek Park, they have a number of cabins that you can rent out and have events. Well, I think the one that the family rented out was Lanternman's Hill. It like has a big like wheel outside, that moves, and a waterfall and all that. It's a really big, cool place. So we had this family get together to honor the three family members, and we were at one point getting everybody together, and my one cousin started talking about everybody and had a speech prepared. And as he was talking about them, people, of course, were taking pictures around. Well, a picture had surfaced of when he was speaking about the three of them. There is, and I have to find this picture. I thought I had it. I've been looking for it. I will find it eventually. When he's speaking, there is three blue, like bright blue, like tiny little orbs, like that big, in a straight line. It was right when he was talking about the three of them. It's incredible. It made its way through the family. I've been calling around for whatever reason. Everybody keeps saying they don't know where it is. I don't know if they don't want me to put it online or something. I'll find it, but it really blew my mind. This was way before I started the channel and everything. It really, was special too. It made you think, how amazing, that we're honoring them. And, you get these situations where, cameras and videotapes and sometimes older technology catches supernatural and paranormal events. And it was, most likely just like an older digital camera when we had this event. And, like I said, within the last 10 years, and it was really touching. And, that will move me on into something that had occurred with me next. In April of 2002, I unfortunately had to have my right leg below the knee amputated. To date, I've had 33 surgeries on different parts of my body. They've all started, not everything is connected to this, but my surgeries started, I played football in high school. I talked about this before at Youngstown Ursuline High School. It's an elite private school, not only athletically, but education speaking as well. I got a full scholarship to play at Youngstown State University for Jim Tressel, who's one of the most legendary college football coaches in history. Everybody who's an Ohio State fan, of course, knows who he is as well. The 4 years that I was there, we went to 4 straight national championships, 1AA. They call it FCS now. And we won 3 out of 4, lost one by only a field goal with 15 seconds on the clock. That one hurt. I had 5 major knee surgeries during that time. It really, it caused my football career to not pan out the way that things were supposed to and could have gone after college as well. I found out also over the last decade that I have systemic lupus, which, if anybody knows what it is, it's an immune system disease. It eats your body up. It starts with causing all kinds of problems with your joints, every joint in your body. And then it will down the road start to affect your organs, your major organs. But makes perfect sense. They think I've had this since I was a child. My mother, Elizabeth Ann Nora Emch. She actually not only died and passed away from a broken heart from my dad dying from pancreatic cancer, but I inherited the systemic lupus from mom. It's a tough disease to have, but sticking to what occurred in April of 2021. So what started, I had a surgery. I had a problem actually called Charcot syndrome. It's spelled Charcot. And what it basically is all of the joints in your foot and ankle dislocate, and in your angular notch, your fibula and tibia, they leave the notch, they spread, and they go to the bottom of the foot. Sometimes, this didn't happen to me, sometimes the bones will actually go through the skin on the bottom of the foot. They'll go through. I had a surgery. It takes orthopedics. They have to be specialized in this surgery. And I had the first surgery to correct this. And one of the other problems of lupus is when you have surgeries or whatever, it fights that. Your body does not want to heal. You're extremely prone to infections. I've almost died numerous times from extremely bad, nasty infections, staph infections, gram-negative rod infections, very bad. I'm lucky to be here from those. The Charcot syndrome was very difficult recovery. It failed. They went in again. And the second time, they did a much more robust surgery. They put plates, more screws. They actually bored out the two bones in the bottom portion of my leg and put, big, long titanium rods. And what happened was the bones actually started breaking down. They would not heal. They started just, the body was just saying, I can't do it. And my doctor, God bless his soul, Dr. Solman at Youngstown Orthopedic Associates, he came in. I had another surgery. I forget what it was to deal with. Tears in his eyes. Literally, the man cried. You can imagine after X amount of surgeries, you get close with these people that are vested in your life and in your recovery. And he was extremely upset that he was unable to get this to work. And he had told me, Matt, if you need a second opinion, he said, I will give you any information you need. And he was such a unbelievable specialist. I mean, you couldn't go to the Cleveland Clinic and find a better doctor. And that's one of the best hospitals in the world. So my trust and faith in him was so extreme that I knew that, he did everything he could. And I knew about all the problems I had. So he told me what I had been fearing the whole time, that we're going to have to take your leg below the knee. And you want to talk about just getting hit with the most unbelievable punch you've ever had, and just going through your mind in a millisecond of my whole life of just being a kid and playing football. My dad, when I was young, teaching me how to throw football in the backyard, and dreaming about playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers and having all these great plans and playing with whatever child or children I have, and never in a billion years thinking that something like that would occur. And I did not respond well to it. I was basically in shock. And, then you go through a lot of other situations of, is my wife ever going to look at me the same again? And, what are other people going to think when they look at me? And very difficult to deal with. So fast forward to a couple weeks actually after the surgery. And I'm sure, Josh, you could imagine everybody else. You have both your legs your entire life. You're an elite athlete, and all of a sudden one of your limbs is taken from you, and you're trying to just do a minor type of thing. I was in a wheelchair. I went in the kitchen real late at night. I tried to get something out of we have an island in the middle of our kitchen, and at the underneath there's a small little fridge that we put drinks and stuff in. And I reached, and I don't remember how it happened, but I slipped off of the wheelchair, and I went straight down. So my leg that had been amputated, the part where the sutures are, just perfectly hit the ground. And of course, immediately blood everywhere. I had to scream for my wife, Stacy, and we get it cleaned up. It actually stopped bleeding relatively fast. We got everything, stopped in like 10 minutes. And it happened again not too long. A day or two later, I fell again. So what occurred was the sutures started on the left side, started to unravel. And I actually ended up getting a hole that opened up like that. It was big. And you could look inside of my leg and see bone and other stuff. My home health care nurse, good friend of mine, Don Perry, I actually coached him in football at Louisville High School. He was taking care of me. And he saw it. He sent pictures to my surgeon. He was out of the country, but they sent him pictures all the way there, and the other doctors at the practice, and they all flipped out, and they said he has to go to emergency immediately. Something horrible could happen. His artery could burst, and he could bleed out and die. I went to I'm not going to mention the hospital, but I went to one of the area hospitals, a Catholic one, and they said that I should be, once you told the triage nurse what's going on, that they would fast track me. Got there, told her, they unraveled my ace bandage and everything. She said, I want to see it. Saw it. She's like, okay. And they wrapped it back up. Long story short, an hour and a half later, they send me down to get x-rays. They forgot about me there. So I sat down there for an hour, which I had to yell at the girl in x-rays that they forgot about me. Then they send me back up to the waiting room where I see people who had come after me leaving the ER. So by that point, I was there for 5 hours. I called my wife and I told her, come get me. I'm leaving. These people have been doing nothing for me. So I wheeled myself outside. No one ever checked on me, said, do you need help, anything. So my wife and daughter come in to get me, and we start to drive home. Ironically, the route that we start to take is Route 422, Youngstown Warren Road, a farther drive from where my friend lived across the street from the steel mills, but the same, stretch of road, which goes for miles and miles. I don't even know how far. It goes for maybe 100 or more, through different areas. And we drive, and we finally get to a point where we are turning right at an area, and we stop at the light. There's a car in front of us, and it's a little cloudy out, not sunny. And we're sitting there and we hear what sounds like water running. And my wife and I look at each other and we're like, what is that noise? And we're looking around. We're like, I said, there's no, it's not raining. What is that? And I look, and then I look down between my legs, and there is the most horrifying thing I have ever seen to date, worse than what I saw when I was 14. There is a literal hose stream of blood shooting out of the hole in my leg, the artery blue in my leg. Right, it had to have happened right in when I got in the car from the hospital. So what they had feared happened. And that could have happened outside at the hospital and nobody ever checked on me. So I go, oh my God, my leg is gushing blood. I wrap my hands around it. And this is when my wife and daughter knew how severe it was. Blood sprays through my fingers and shoots in every direction, hits the windshield, all the windows. And of course, you could imagine being them. Oh my God, it was... Everybody has, to this day, bad PTSD, severe PTSD from that. And there was a gas station right when you turn right, immediate on your left. So my wife immediately turns right, flies into the gas station, throws it in park, and her and my daughter jump out of the car, and they're looking in the trunk for something to wrap around my leg or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on? I knew how bad it was. And when I looked down, one of the noises actually that also drew our attention is, have you ever when you spilled a lot of fluid on a carpet, it makes that specific soppy sound. So this is how I knew it started at the hospital, because it had soaked up so much blood, and we found out I had lost at least 2.5 pints in the car. My wife actually got rid of the car after this occurred. It was a new lease. She had a brand new car. It was only not even a year old. But the noise was that carpet full of liquid sound. And I start to feel immediately I'm getting lightheaded and my heart's starting to beat really fast. And just at that moment, the hysteria is going, or they're running around and screaming outside of the car, not to anybody, to each other. Did you find anything? A woman who had been working at the gas station was smoking a cigarette outside. She saw them. She walked over and said, hey guys, are you guys okay? My wife turns to her and screams, oh my God, please call an ambulance. My husband's bleeding to death. And she immediately starts to call 911. I heard her on the phone. She's screaming at the operator, telling her where the gas station was. And she said, there's a man here in a car. He's bleeding to death. Please send an ambulance immediately. In the meantime, she calls a gentleman who worked at the gas station as well to come out and help. She told him what happened. And he comes over at one point, and he has a pickup truck, and what he had in the pickup truck were one of those ratchet kind of things you can tie stuff down in the back. He starts to make a makeshift tourniquet, and what I find out is he is an ex-combat medic, and he just so happens to be that. He's trying to help me. And I hear the woman on the phone again screaming, bleep, 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 where the bleep are you guys? This guy's dying in the car. Why aren't you here? At the same time that's going on, a doctor was driving by and he saw hysteria going around the car, and something he said told him to stop. And he just pulled in. And when he came over, he said, I'm a doctor. Do you guys need help? And my wife screamed, oh my God, please help me. My husband's bleeding to death. And he came over and he saw, and he starts to try and help. They said, we have to get this man to the hospital. He's going to die. And he's trying to help. Now I have, like long Adidas pants on. You can't see where the the leg is, what's left. And this guy, the ex-combat medic's trying to find the area to put this thing on and tie it up the right way and ratchet it. And the doctor's, he starts to take over, and I grab his hand, and now I'm losing consciousness. And I grab his hand and I said, right here, doctor. I said, you're going to have to do it. I said, I'm not going to be able to keep. And I just remember out. And the next thing I find the next thing I remember is pain across my face, because Stacy, then I'll laugh here, Stacy had wound up and cracked me as hard as she could to wake me back up, because she thought I was dead. So she, bam, Matt, no, you're not going. Get up. And I mean, she really whapped me, but she kept me awake at that point. My daughter is in shock, complete shock. And by that point, my mother-in-law, who just so happened to live right down the street from where we were, my wife had called her. She drove down, and I remember looking up. I said, where's her daughter? And my mother-in-law had her wrapped in her. She's holding her. My daughter's white as a ghost. Finally, after 6 minutes, I think the ambulance gets there and they jump out. Now, normally it's 2 paramedics, but in the back was the supervisor, heard over the call what was going on, and she jumped in the back of the ambulance and said, I'm coming with you. She jumped out, and then one of the paramedics just so happened to be a friend of ours, and he came over and he grabbed me. He said, Matt, look at me. And I looked at him. I remember this. And I said, help. And he said, we're going to help you, Matt. We're going to help you. And they put a sheet under me, and I'll never forget how they snatched me out of the car. My shoe flew off on my left foot, the only leg I had left, and they took me and they threw me in the back of the ambulance. They didn't even take the gurney out. And they said, where do you want to go? My wife said, don't take him to the blankety blank hospital. Take him to Trumbull Memorial. And they said, well, that's where we're going to go. They have a level 2 trauma unit. And they closed the doors and they started going. They didn't have me strapped down or anything. The supervisor said, we have to go now. And as we're going, the supervisor was like, we have to get, she was scared. We have to get there now. He's not going to make it. Like, she was shook. Stacy, my wife, my daughter, and my mother-in-law were at the back of the ambulance. So my wife and daughter come, and they are there. And as I am sitting there ready for them to leave, I look at them, and I'm sitting up in the gurney, and I looked at them, and I feel my life literally slipping away. I had lost, like I said, they said that I lost 2.5 pints at least in the car. It looked like a murder scene, something out of a movie. And I went black. The next thing I remember was, as I'm going out, I hear my daughter screaming, Daddy, no. Daddy, please. My wife screaming, Matt, no, 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 Matt, please. And then black. The next thing I remember after that, we were in Trumbull Memorial Hospital, which is in Warren, Ohio, which was probably about a 5-minute drive from where we were. I was told they got there in 1 minute. I remember I was laying there, and this is at least the kind of funny part. My wife tells it pretty funny. First of all, they were hurting me, man. They couldn't find a vein because I had lost so much blood. So they're jabbing me left and right, they put 2 in me. And I'm like, God, please stop. I had a brand new Carhartt t-shirt on the first time I ever wore it. It was like a $40 t-shirt. Cut off. I yelled at them, why the hell didn't you let me take that shirt off? They're like, sir, that's the last thing on our minds right now. So when Stacy gets to the poor thing, she's blood all over her, on her cheek, all splatter all over her winter coat, on her shirt, in complete and utter shock, white as a ghost. She comes over to me and she grabs my hand and she's like, Matt, honey. And she said that I yelled, they cut my effing Carhartt t-shirt. I lost consciousness again not long after that. And as I'm talking to her, that's apparently the last thing I said. And I go out, and the next thing I remember is I see black, and I am standing in a field, and I look down. I'm 100% aware of the situation. I remember what had been occurring. I remember I don't have my leg, and I look down and I have my leg. So I'm completely confused. I don't know what's going on. And when I look back up, there are thousands of people around me everywhere. But the strange thing is every single person around me was like super blurry, like they're completely out of focus in a camera or a video camera. I could not see what they looked like. Some of them are looking at me. I could tell that, but I couldn't see who they were, what they were doing really. But some, like I said, their heads were looking at me. Some were not looking. The majority were not looking at me. And I'm like, what is going on here? And all of a sudden I get this just super strong feeling of someone over my right shoulder. And I turn and I look. And I see my mom and dad. I swear they were there. My mom and dad who were gone. My dad, like I said, died of, we called each other since I was a kid, best buddy. He was my best buddy. There's 5 kids in my family. I'm not trying to say I was his favorite. It just was our name for each other. Ultra close. He played football at the high school I went to. He actually had a full scholarship to play at the University of Miami. He turned it down because he was so in love with my mother that he stayed home. He turned that scholarship down. He wouldn't leave my mom. we wouldn't most likely be here if he would have took it. My mom, like I said, 2 ways she died. One, where they always say when one spouse dies, when they're ultra close, when they're really in love, some unfortunately aren't, but the majority that are married long time, they die of a broken heart. That's real. You hear some people of losing a spouse, some of them die a week or a month later. That's true. My mom died years later, but let me tell you something. It was a slow, painful, she just slowly just wasted away. And again, she had lupus as well. So she had 2 things that killed her, but one, we all agree that she died of a broken heart more than anything. They are standing right over here, and I turn. I run to my mom and dad, and I'm hugging them and I'm kissing them. Mom and Dad, how is this possible? What is going on? And they're crying with me, and we're kissing, and I'm hugging. My dad never spoke. He never spoke, but he's a big man like me, 6'4". He just smiling at me, just looking at him, and I miss you guys. How is this? I kept saying, how is this possible? How is this possible? My mom is this 4'8", super short little Lebanese woman, smiling, honey, we miss you too. We love you, baby. And I'm looking down at her and I'm bawling my eyes out. How is this possible? How am I seeing you? All of a sudden, after I, ask over and over, how is this possible? I get the old, what everybody hears, honey, we love you, but you can't stay here. This isn't your time. And, I'm going to just say what I said. I said, bull, I'm not going anywhere. I haven't seen you guys in years. I miss you so much. And I had this extreme, just so strong feeling of, I just wanted to stay. I did not want to leave. And so, I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure a lot of other people have heard, when people have had near-death experiences, the feeling of just, you just want to stay. I don't think I was in heaven. I really don't. I think I was somewhere in between. I do. I don't think it was heaven at all. I think like it was on the outskirts, if you will. But I was very forward about. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. And again, the feeling of wanting to stay was so strong, and it's upsetting right now because, on the other side, my wife and my baby, my daughter my wife's being told that at that moment I'm dead. My heart stopped. And she looks at me with the most sweet look she's always had. And she smiles and she looks at me and she takes her right hand and she touches my left cheek. And there was just like a flash, like almost like a camera flash, but really bright. And the next thing I know, I'm laying on the operating room table in the surgical, one of the surgical suites in Trumbull Memorial Hospital in Warren, Ohio, like I said before. And the surgeon that saved my life was, her name is Dr. Mashburn. She's a phenomenal woman. I love her. She's so sweet. I was bawling. I had tears just pouring out of my eyes. And she put her hand like on my forehead and she said, Matt, we're gonna do our best to save you, okay, honey? And I think she thought, well, I know she thought that I was crying because I was, what was going on. I was also, according to her, blue because I'd lost so much blood. And I do remember I was the coldest I've ever been in my life. I was sitting there going, uncontrollable shaking. I'd lost by that point almost 3 pints or more. And they put, after she said that, they put the mask on me and they injected the sodium pentothal or whatever, amytal. And I went out. I remember when they put the mask on, I thought to myself, am I gonna live or die? And I woke up. in what's it called, critical care, that department. And immediately, as soon as I opened my eyes, it just so happened to be one of the, actually two, but the one wasn't at my bedside. One of them was. It was two of the residents that had been in the operating room with Dr. Mashburn. And she's like, oh my God, Matt. She goes, hey, how are you, how are you feeling? Blah, blah, blah. I was just in a different world at that moment. I was just like, after everything that occurred, the first thing on my mind was, I want my family. The second thing on my mind was, I have to tell all of my family what happened. I have to tell my brothers and sisters. I have to tell my wife and daughter. I've got to tell them. And like I told the resident, I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And she said, and I remember she said to me, man, how you feeling? We lost you there for a minute. I died for a little over 90 seconds. So a little over a minute and a half, my heart stopped. And I told her right away, I said, you're not going to believe this. I said, I'm telling you, I know for a fact this really happened. And I told her, she started to cry. She said, I believe you. She said, you were dead. You were clinically dead. And I, of course, didn't, to hear that, it's really powerful. Because, that part didn't really run by me when I was seeing my parents that I was dead. And, this means I'm basically dead here. And then the other resident came over and and I actually, pretty much, they had given me a lot of blood and plasma by that point. And by the time I had left, I think they said they gave me, oh God, I don't remember. I think like 10 to 12 bags of blood and like 3 or 4 giant bags of this plasma. And I felt relatively normal when I woke up. They had the leg 90% sewn up. They wanted to leave a little bit open in case it was leaking and they could deal with it. It didn't. So they were going to take me back to surgery that day to sew the rest up. And when the resident came over, she saw that her fellow resident was crying. And she's like, is everything okay here? And she said, tell her. And I told her, and she started to cry. And they said, do you mind if we start, if we share this with? I said, of course not. So it spread around the hospital, like the area. And I remember a couple nurses coming over and they said, will you tell me what happened? And they called my wife and they told her I was awake. And she immediately left and came to see me. Unfortunately, it was, right around the end of the COVID era thing that my daughter wasn't allowed to go to the hospital. So my wife came, and when she walked in, like her eyes were the size of silver dollars first, and she had just crocodile tears in her eyes. And as soon as she came over, she just wrapped her arms around me, and we just started bawling. And she's like, please don't ever do that to me again. She's like, I thought you were gone. I didn't think I was ever going to see you again. They told me you died. She's like, do you know what that did to me? Do you know what that did to me? When we got through our personal moments there, I said, you have to listen to me. Something happened to me. She goes, what do you mean? I said, please, you have to believe me. I said, I saw my mom and dad. And she said, what? And I told her what happened, and she started to cry. And she said, I have your phone. She said, you need to tell your brothers and sisters. And I said, I will. I'm going to call. She goes, what? Wait. She goes, you don't need to call them now. She said, honey, you just woke up. I said, are you kidding me? I said, I'm calling them right now. And I called them from the hospital. And, of course, they wanted to talk to me. They knew what happened. And they were every one of them cried on the phone with me. They as well knew, they thought they lost me too. And I told them exactly what happened. I said, I saw mom and dad, and they all cried, and it was really an amazing experience. And it was one that I'll never forget. So I've been dealing with ulcers for years because of all the surgeries I've had. You can imagine the amount of anti-inflammatories I've been prescribed. So one of the anti-inflammatories that has really wreaked havoc on my stomach is naproxen. And this one time, like, I hadn't been on it for years because of the problems it was causing. But this one time I had run out of the medicine I take. It's called Celebrex. It's a lot easier on your stomach, the anti-inflammatory. And I ran out of it, and the only anti-inflammatory in the house that I had was naproxen. And I took one. And what it did to me was it caused 2 ulcers in my stomach to start bleeding badly. And it also caused a vein to rupture in my stomach. So I was bleeding out internally. I was internally bleeding. I almost died from that as well. In fact, it got to the point where when I finally, with the craziness all went around, I'm not going to get to it. But it took my daughter to beg me crying to go to the hospital, because all I wanted to do was go to sleep. I didn't want anybody to bother me. And my fingers were blue and everything. I had turned the paramedics away twice, 2 different crews. Finally, my daughter had come in bawling, please, Daddy, if you love me, please go to the hospital. And I finally agreed. When I got there, they checked my hemoglobin level, and it was 1 point level. It was 1.9. Anybody that knows about hemoglobin levels, that low is usually a cadaver. That's usually someone dead. The ER doctor who was in charge of me that day told me the last time he saw low hemoglobin levels, and they weren't even that low. He had done a stint in Afghanistan as a medical doctor for our troops. And he said he had a few different soldiers that he worked on that died. And he said from gunshot and explosives, like, IED wounds, their hemoglobin levels were higher dead than mine were. And they were absolutely dumbfounded that I lived through it. And they had said, if you had turned away the last ambulance, they said you had probably 20, 30 minutes and you would have been gone. So I also almost passed away from a horrific staph infection one time. So as my wife, Stacy, always says, that, you are so far beyond your 9 lives. It's ridiculous. And what I've been told is, he or she, whoever, whatever is up, in charge, they have a plan for me, whatever that may be. I don't know yet. I'd like to find out before I'm gone. And, I always say this when I've shared this. I'm not afraid to die anymore. I don't want to go. Trust me. I want to stay here as long as I can. But I am 150% absolutely, unequivocally positive that there is life after death. There is something. I saw my mom and dad. There's no question. It was not a dump of chemicals. It wasn't something going on in my brain that some doctors say when people die or they have, they come back and they're saved, that it's just a body's reaction to the stress of, almost dying in a dump of chemicals. No, let me tell you something. This was absolutely, positively real. It happened. There is no question about it. I know for sure. So for everybody out there, I'm telling you, and I've been obviously since it happened, I've been watching and researching and listening to other people who have had near-death experiences. Very similar things out there. Not identical, but some people almost. And there is no doubt in my mind, Josh, no question, we will see our loved ones again. There is something after we pass from this realm. And again, I'm not rushing nothing. I want to stay here as long as I can. But I no longer fear that. Is there something after we go? No doubt. There is. And that is a powerful, unbelievable thing to have happen. I've so many times over the years, with all the things that have happened to me, especially since April of 2022, losing my leg and all that stuff that happened. I mean, you remember, I don't know if I looked like a skeleton. I had friends of mine, my one buddy, Diallo, who I played football with in high school. He called me bawling. He saw my picture on Facebook. He thought I had cancer and I was dying. He was begging me, bawling. My wife and I had to calm him down. It took us 20 minutes to calm him down. He was so upset, saying he was the worst friend on earth. I'm so sorry that I don't, I missed you and I didn't see. It was crazy, man. I was so sick. But you know what? I don't fear it anymore. It was an amazing thing. So that's what happened with that thing. One of the most incredible experiences I've had in the supernatural in paranormal cryptid world. That wasn't that long ago, that I will never forget, and I actually have proof, was at Beaver Creek State Park in Ohio, which is only about 34 minutes from my house. This was maybe a year and a half to 2 years. I think it was about a year and a half ago. If you go to Planet 412 and you go to oldest videos and you go to the second video, you won't believe what happened at Beaver Creek. That's what I'm going to talk about right here. One of my friends that I haven't actually talked to him in a long time. I hope him and his wife, Lois, Ernie Davio, he had a really amazing Bigfoot experience. I interviewed him. It's on Planet 412 as well. But there was a Bigfoot conference. It's called the Friends of Bigfoot. It's actually coming up. I think it's where Beaver Creek is. It's near East Liverpool, Ohio. And we had never met in person, but we've talked, obviously, saw him on camera and everything. So him and his wife and their dog came up from Columbus, Ohio. That's the area they live in. And they wanted to meet with me, and we went out to dinner. And then after dinner, they said, "Hey, we're staying at this hotel," which was close to it was literally across the parking lot from where we ate. They said, "We're going to Beaver Creek." The people, because Ernie was talking in this conference, he said, everybody that's speaking in this conference and the guy that's running it is actually at this campsite at Beaver Creek State Park. We're going back. We're going to hang out and just, chill with everybody, eat, dessert or whatever, and just hang out. Do you want to come with us and me? I'm like, sure. I mean, I'm, 34, 35 minutes from home. I might as well go. So we go, and this is a campsite that's one of, if not the hardest one to find. It took us a little while for him to remember where it was. I know where it is now, but it's really not marked well, and it's kind of hidden. And we go and we find this place. I actually met my buddy David Wolf as well, who has a production company, and he has a YouTube channel called Exposing the Strange. I'm going to be actually in a documentary with him this year he's releasing. But we go there, and Ernie starts to introduce me to everybody. And apparently I was told, and Ernie and everybody were sitting around, and the people are talking about this campsite that we're at is highly, and the park, the state park apparently is ultra paranormal, supernatural, all kind, not just like, it's very, very well known, and you guys can look it up. Josh, you can. It's known for Bigfoot activity, very, very strong Bigfoot activity. Very well known, but not only that, paranormal, like ghosts and things like that, like a headless ghost, and people have proof of this stuff. Well, this campsite that we're staying at, they were starting to talk about at the top of this long hill with a trail. There was supposedly a portal up there, like a stone portal, that Bigfoot and other beings like a Indian like Apache warrior or some kind of warrior rides a horse bareback with the paint and everything, will actually come out of this stone portal and will come running down the hill. And run through the campsite and out and just disappear after they've gone down. There's a stream by there, and apparently like a limestone, and that's really well known to water and limestone to cause more paranormal activity as well. All of a sudden, without any warning or anything, I get a tap on my shoulder, and I'm on crutches at this point. I had just had my left knee replaced maybe about a month and a half before that, and then on my right side, I have a prosthetic. So not the greatest moment for me walking wise. And I turn around and there's a guy, about here on me. His name's Johnny Freeman. He's a pretty well-known psychic, and he says, "Hi, sorry to bother you. I just want to introduce myself. My name's Johnny Freeman. I'm a psychic." I didn't really know what to think about it because, first of all, for psychics, in my opinion, first of all, you got to prove it for me. I really, there's some out there that are absolutely incredible, just phenomenal. But I was curious what he wanted to know or what he was hitting me up about. And he said, "I just wanted you to know that I'm being told that you," well, right before he said that, he said, "I just wanted you," and he introduced himself, shook my hand, and he said, "I just want you to know I've never seen anybody with an aura like yours before." And then he said, "I just want you to know that I'm being told that you need to go to the top of that hill where the portal is." And I look at him and I look up at the hill. I said, "Okay." I said, "Did you, see where I am here?" I said, "I also have this issue." I pulled up my pant leg. You could see my prosthetic. And I said, "I'm, just had my knee replaced." And I'm like, "I don't know how well I could get up there." I said, blah, blah, blah. He's like, "I understand. I'm just telling you what I'm being told. You do what you want with it. It's a pleasure meeting you. I didn't want to bother you anymore." Blah, blah, blah. I said, "It's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it." I wasn't going to go, thought about it for a while. And then finally it was like, you know what? I thought about like everything that happened to me. And it was just like all this stuff that's happened to me through the years. And, it's so beyond coincidence. It's just like everything has happened. It's just unbelievable. It's just like everything's amazing that's been happening through the years, and it's meant to be. So finally I said, "You know what? Screw it. I'm going up." So I tell Ernie and his wife, I'm like, "Hey, this is what he said, blah, 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 blah." And they're like, "Okay, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going." And he had told me, "You need to go alone." So I'm like, "Okay, I'm going." So I go, very slow trek up. And this was a sketchy trail. As I go further up, it's getting thinner, like, narrower and narrower. And I look to my left as I'm going up, and I'm like, there is a ledge that you can look down once you got further at the top, that there is a drop. And at the bottom of the drop was like a stream, a river or a stream. And let me tell you something, brother. If you fell by the time I got to you either are dead or mangled beyond belief, which would have been my luck. I wouldn't have died. It just would have been, I would have been messed up. So I had, to stop at times and put my crutches down and just like take a knee and my good knee and just sit down. Like I was soaking wet, sweating. This was the summer. Finally, I get to the top, and there was a last leg, probably only 30 feet, 25 feet to get to this portal thing. And I could see it. I had to kind of lean out like this to see, because there was just I'll give you the pictures for it. There was the trail like went like, I mean, like this. And there was a rock face on my right. And if I didn't have my crutches, I could have like put my back against it and, did this. But there was no way on earth that I was doing that. So I said, okay, this is as close as I'm getting. This is it. And well, it just so happened right before that area. And like I said, I could see it from where I was standing if I leant over and I actually grabbed a small little sapling, which is about that thick, and I held it and I looked at the portal, and it was a strange rock formation. It was different, and definitely knew that it was what I was supposed to see. And there was a tree that had fell, and it was laying there. I'm like, I'm going to sit there. So I sit down on it, and I'm like soaking wet. I wipe my face. I take my hat off and catch my breath. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, so I start talking out loud. I'm like, hi, I guess I'm supposed to come up here. I mean you no harm. I said, I am asking for your permission to be here. I hope I have it. I mean you no disrespect. A person down there told me that I was supposed to come up here. Would you please show yourself to me? And I just sat there, and, as I'm sitting there, I just keep getting this, like, as I'm sitting along, I'm getting a feeling in my chest that something's like starting weird to go on. And it does get quiet. Like, people talk about things get quiet. As I get this feeling like, oh, okay, something's about to happen, nothing happens. So it's starting to get dark. It's like beyond dusk. And I'm like, man, that took me 30, 35 minutes to get up this hill. I need to go. So I thought, you know what? The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my phone out and I'm going to do what I see on all these shows. They do EVPs. I mean, it's worth it. And I take this phone and there's a recording, audio recording there.
Is there anyone out here with me? Thank you for allowing me to be in your home, in your woods. Do you want to say anything to tell me you're here? What's your name? Is there anyone here, and how many of you are there?
I say, I want to thank you for allowing me to, be here in your woods. And I wanted to know, if I forget everything I said, but I basically had thanked them and said, I mean you no harm, and yada. And I press stop and I play it back. When I'm listening to this recording, there is an obvious other being grunt that is so beyond, like I said, obvious. It's not me. There is no one else up there. And not only is there this grunt, which anyone would imagine a Bigfoot grunting would sound like, there are 3. I said, how many are there of you? And mind you, I heard none of this with my own ears. None of it. Did not hear the grunt. And there are 3 wood knocks. Bap, bap, bap. When I said, how many are you that answered? I stood up without my crutches, like I still had my leg and I didn't have, I was like, whip. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I started thanking whatever. And I'm like, I thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And I just was beyond stoked and just flipped out. And when I made it down to the bottom of the hill, I went straight for this Johnny Freeman, and he tells the story pretty funny. He says, Matt's a big guy, and I had dropped my crutches and I grabbed him. I guess I didn't realize I grabbed him. His feet came up off the ground. I didn't even notice. He said, Matt grabbed me. He's like, my feet came up off the ground. And I was like, holy, what the? I said, dude, I'm like, you're not going to believe what happened to me up there. You were right. And I played it for him, and he looked at me and he was calm. He goes, I told you. He said, I told you needed to go up there. He says, I'm not surprised at all. He goes, that's incredible. He says, wow, you got something. And I played it later. I played it for my buddy, Ernie, and his wife. And they're like, their eyes are falling out of their heads. And I let everybody else later hear it and played it for this David Wolf. And, him and I got to be, like I said, we're really good friends now. And fast forward to when I met you at the Dogman and Cryptid conference down at Paranormal Roundtables down in Texas. I met you for the first time, but I met Ron Moorhead and his wife, and I asked Mr. Moorhead if he would mind listening to an EVP sound clip. And he said, sure. And we're standing actually in like the hallway there, and I played it for him, and he said, play that again. I played it like 3-4 times. And I said, what's your opinion, sir? What do you think? He goes, sounds like you got something there, son. I said, do you think it's a Bigfoot? He goes, I do. And I played it for a number of people there, and they all were like you could see they're like, God, well, damn, man, this guy got something really good. So I was really blown away by it. That was awesome. And, I don't know what to say about how stuff has occurred. It's just, they talk about people are sensitive, and some people just have experiences more. Within the last year, this one night I was sitting in my chair, not far from where I'm sitting right now, actually diagonally behind this camera. And it was during the witching hour. And I fall asleep. And, when you have a dream and in your dream, you're at home, but you're never at your real home. It's somewhere else. But this was my house. I was at my house. I go in my backyard, and I have woods in my backyard. It is 100%. Everything is the same. This was not, I'm telling you, this was not a dream. This was an out-of-body experience. And I hear this noise in my woods, and I walk to the back of the fence. We have a chain link in the back of the fence so we could see in the woods. And I'm looking in the woods, listening to this noise, and all of a sudden I get grabbed and shook. I just get shook. All of a sudden I get thrown on the ground. The air gets knocked out of me. The wind gets knocked out of me. And all of a sudden I notice this dark shape over me, like a big, large being over me. All of a sudden I see what exactly 100% attacked me and my friends when I was 14 is now wrapping its mouth around my prosthetic on my right leg, grabs it in its mouth and rips it off and throws it into the woods with its mouth. It starts to crawl up over me, and as it crawls up over me, it puts its face like this far from my face. I mean, like right here. When someone puts their face really close, you can almost feel like that weird feeling. I felt it. it's drooling a little bit. And even in this situation, it went in my mouth. I even tasted a salty jelly like thing. It was gross. Everybody's asked me, did you guys smell anything when that thing attacked you? You know, because that's always the thing. Do you guys smell Sasquatch? I didn't. We didn't that night. I smelled something. You know, in a dream, you smelled something. It wasn't a dream, but it smelled like a farm animal, like a horse or something, a cow. It wasn't foul. It just smelled like a farm animal. And this thing's looking at me, and its eyes are super glowing with that amber color, the exact same thing. It is 100% the same creature. And I am 100%, 150% fear is going through my body. I'm thinking I'm dead. This is it. It came back for me. And all of a sudden I hear, which sounds like something like out of a movie, like a synthesized deep voice. Its mouth didn't move. You hear people talk about in the supernatural realm, mind speak. Well, that's what this thing did. And it had mind speak. And I hear, I came for you all those years ago. You speak of me too much. I will see you soon. And I wake up in my chair, sopping wet with sweat. My dog Hadley has her two paws on my knees. Her ears are back. She's looking at me. Her tail is up between her legs. So far, it's basically touching her belly, and she's whining. You always talk about dogs and other animals know when something's going on. She knew. In fact, she's over to my right. She's actually looking at me. Dude, I'm telling you, I always say this, you believe what you want. I will not get angry or hate on anybody that doesn't believe this happened. This was absolutely, in my opinion, an out of body experience, or I call it a dreamscape dream. Which basically, in my opinion, is an out of body experience. Man, I've had people reach out to me, a lot of people, like other psychics. I've had other people. I had a Native American person. They're part of, I forget what Indian nation they said they were part of. They said this thing was reaching out to you. It was really incredible, man. So that blew me away. They said this thing was speaking to me and that I'm connected to it in some form of fashion. There was I just remembered one thing that, people had asked me, when you were a kid, before that, did anything happen? And there was one event, and my younger brother can corroborate this if he ever wanted to. It was the summer. I think I was probably like 7 or 8. We were in we grew up in it was 412 Laura Avenue was the address, and on the north side of Youngstown. We were playing, and it was an old house, so it wasn't central air, but each bedroom had the window units. We were playing with Hot Wheels cars on my mom and dad's huge, like ultra king size bed, and there was like a bang on their door, and I got up off the bed. I thought it was my mom. It was just, my dad was at work, and my other 4 siblings, I don't know where they were. It was just, or my other 3 siblings. It was just me and my younger brother. So there were just 3 people in the house. I thought it was my mom. I'm like, why would she be knocking? So I opened the doors, and there's nobody there. And how funny. I always notice. And that's my buddy Beaver. He's my shadow. But if you look at the time, I always notice that. So day and night, man. So he's my guardian angel, Beaver. So I opened the door, and there's nobody there. All of the bedroom doors are closed because of the window unit air conditioners. The bathroom doors open, but they're all closed. The door to the attic is always closed. So I'm like, what the heck was that? So I close the door, I turn around, and before I even take 2 steps, bam, bam, like the door almost opened. So I got horrified. I turned around. The first thing I did is I went and I started holding the door. And as soon as I started holding the door, it was like somebody on the other side was pushing, like hitting the door, trying to get in. And I'm like, I started screaming. I'm like, oh my, like I was freaking out. And I screamed to my brother to help me. And he jumped up and we're holding on the door, screaming bloody murder. And somebody or something is trying to get in. And every time the door gets hit, it opens just a little bit like that. So we are screaming for our mother. Next thing we know, we hear her coming up the stairs. Now, an old house, you can hear, on the stairs. And she comes up, and next thing we know, we hear, open the door. She has a wooden spoon in her hand, and she was cooking, and she's like, what are you doing? And we're like, we told her what happened, and she didn't believe us. And she actually smacked both of our butts with the wooden spoon. And I'm like, why are you doing it? She's like, because you're lying. And that's the only, as far as I know, the only thing that ever happened to us haunted or anything weird. But that stuck with me. Like I have goosebumps still to this day from that. And like I said, my younger brother can corroborate that freaked us out. I don't know what happened, what it was, what was going on, but man, that was freaky.
You named your channel Planet 412. What significance does the number 412 have to you?
Immediately, like I just said, our address was 412 Lower Avenue. The house that we grew up in actually doesn't even exist. Ironically, just 4 days ago, I was in Youngstown. I drove down our old street. And, there's just an empty lot. There's, the grass was super high. There's nothing there. Kind of a tragic story, actually. When we moved out, a family moved in, and the father was unfortunately in a random drive-by shooting. I think they were the shooting. They were shooting at another house, and bullets just came in, and it killed the father. Unfortunately, the family moved out, and then I think it was just empty. And either somebody lit it on fire or a fire just started and it burned to the ground, and which is heartbreaking. When we moved out, there's downstairs there was like a storage room, like for food and things like that. I remember I like took a screwdriver and a hammer and I put in this one beam that whenever you'd walk in and out of that room, it said the Emches were here. But, that's the first thing. My dad always played 412 boxed on the lottery. And he actually won a couple of times. And, not a tremendous amount of money. I think he won like $1,500 one time. And then, and this has nothing, a lot of people have asked me, oh, are you from Pennsylvania? Because that's the area code in one area. I said, no, it has nothing. I'm not from Pennsylvania. What really I named it for the most, aside from, because 412, my address is number one. All the stuff that I've been through, not with the Dogman, but everything else with my health, and all the other personal things. I one day was sitting there with my wife, and I said, you know what? Everyone keeps asking me about what 412 means. I'm just going to look it up. And I looked it up on Google, and, my wife is very skeptical of a lot of things. So when I started looking it up and I started reading these things, she was like, oh, okay. But then I got to the nitty gritty of the explanations of it, and it's like angelically connected. So if you read on Google meaning of the number 412, it'll say it's connected to an angel 412 and the meanings behind it. And when I read out all of the things connected, there was a lot of them. My wife looked at me and she went, oh my God. She goes, Matt, that is so freaky. It's like you just read like part of your life story. It really was. It was really crazy. I'm going to have to I'll look it up and I'll send you, man, it was nuts. And it was kind of inspiring too. Like, it was like, wow. Like, again, all these kind of meant to be's. And, I have had one thing about me since I've been a child. Well, two things. I have always had this feeling internally about me, beyond strong feeling. I can't even honestly explain this like innate in like this feeling inside like my chest. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always told my mom and dad, my siblings, mostly my parents, like, Mom and Dad, I don't understand, but I feel like there's something important that I have to do. And I've told my wife and my daughter, like, I always told my wife, like, when we really got serious and we started dating, I used to tell her, I'm like, can I tell you something? I've always had this feeling that I was meant to do something like really important. I don't know what it is. And I still have it. I don't know what it's just like a voice is talking to me and it's saying, I have to do. I don't know. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. It's not an actual, like, I'm hearing voices. It's more of like this super strong feeling that's just like, I know before I die, there's something very important I need to accomplish. I don't know what it is, but it's been going on as far as I can remember. So one of the other things that I've been able to do, again, since I was a kid, and you can ask my wife for yourself, she will tell you freakily, I have had the ability to have premonition, and I do it regularly. It freaks my wife and daughter out. I've been doing it since also I was a kid. I can't explain it. I'm not saying I'm psychic because I'm not. But I just get this super strong feeling in my gut. I always say, listen to your gut. Well, my feelings are just like, oh my God, they're so strong. And it's like 99% right. When I get this gut feeling, I really usually am never wrong. And then, it's like, then we move to like 1A right under it. And again, you could ask my wife. I have had this ridiculous ability to like notice extreme detail for whatever reason. I don't know why, but like, I just notice everything. I like just silly things too, just the littlest little detail. Like I like when I'm looking around, like if I'm somewhere and I just look at a scene, like, like we're out to dinner or we're like at somewhere, and my wife or daughter, like, how did you notice that? I could have never even seen that. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, and they're all intertwined. I know they are. I'm not trying to say like I'm some kind of special person or anything, but you always see some people for whatever reason just have themselves tapped into, something a little extra. And I know for a fact, for whatever reason, I'm plugged into something a little extra. And I can appreciate that, I'd love some answers as to why and what, and what's going on, and I might not be able to get those answers until I head upstairs. But as I've said since that event occurred when I was 14, if I could change the fact that my friends are gone, I would change it, man. And I would not make that happen. And I'd have my friends alive today, but I can't do that. So the fact that it happened, and I know of all these different things that are going on, and that what type of world has opened up to me since knowing that those things exist. I mean, I don't know, it's special. You know what I mean? It's universally shattering. It's not all negative. You know what I mean? I appreciate some parts of it that I know that stuff is real. And there's always going to be people out there that don't believe it and don't believe me, and I don't hate on them, and I'm just not going to, have a negative feeling. I understand, because if you haven't had that type of experience, if you haven't seen something incredible, supernatural, paranormal, you can't fathom what that does to you. So I understand. Really, really amazing. It really just blows my mind.
Tell me about your experience with Sibylla Irwin making illustrations of the being you saw when you were a teenager.
First off, she's an amazing person. I love Sibylla. Her and I have actually become extremely close. She is one of the most positive, loving human beings anyone will ever meet. And her channel, Sketching Encounters, please, anybody check it out. If you've had an experience, I got to put a shameless plug in there for her. If you've had an experience with a cryptid or alien or something like that, make sure you reach out to Sibylla Irwin on Sketching Encounters, because, her and I worked together for like a year on the Dogman that I had the attack with me and my friends. For her to make that come alive, and then you took that and you improved upon it. That was the first time I saw hers. Of course, it shook me. And then when you took it and you did your magic on it and improved it, I had a cold shiver run through my body. To be able to see that thing, on a computer screen or your phone or whatnot in front of you, it's haunting. It is. I remember when I first started looking at them, I almost had this weird kind of feeling like I shouldn't be looking at it. What if it causes it to come after me again?
Oh, yeah, huh? Didn't even think about that.
Kind of like a skinwalker. I had that kind of, they say you shouldn't talk about them. That's kind of like how I felt. I was kind of paranoid about it.
Didn't you say it was about 95% there?
Oh, yeah. Super close. The only, and maybe if you could do it for me, the only difference, the only thing that was not there was the eyes weren't glowing. That was the only problem with it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But otherwise, it was incredible what you did to it. Yeah, that one where it's like screaming, it roars when its mouth's wide open. That picture,
It's the like the
yeah.
close
Oh,
up of the
dude,
corner.
man, like I just got like goosebumps, man. That one gets me.
I don't even know if I want to look at it again. Like, creeped me out because it was so like yeah, it's just an image, but I think the meaning behind it, knowing like that's what you saw and you reacted to, you're like, oh my gosh, I saw it again. Like
that one that's the one that gets me the most, is that one.
What are your thoughts on the Palmyra, Maine incident? And do you believe that there's a connection between what happened to you and what happened to them?
I mean, there has to be some form of a connection. I mean, they're at the very least, some percentage of the same type of creature. I mean, when he talked about, what they are, I mean, they obviously weren't as big. They didn't have glowing eyes as much. I think they said they did glow, their eyes glowed to a certain point, but, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they were werewolf, basically. They were like a dogman. They have similarities. There's something going on all over whenever you see these things or people are having experiences with them. Where did they come from? They had that mud hut or whatever they had created in the woods that they were, inside of when the son and his girlfriend and the dogs had found it in the woods. Some of them were inside of there. But going beyond that, they came from somewhere. Mine came from somewhere. I've said this a million times, that there's absolutely no way, shape, or form that this thing is natural. It's supernatural. I think 100% it's stepped out of another dimension. It crossed that veil, and we were that night. We were staring at that fire. Whatever we were doing when we weren't talking, we all kind of reached that vibrational frequency, the same one that this thing was on, and we crossed paths. And I believe that these things, however, they were either had entered our realm the same way, or, you get a lot of people that talk about, possibly that the government, found a dead one or killed one, and then they started doing their mumbo jumbo and actually created some. I don't think they had anything to do, the government, with those. I can't deny that there are similarities to it. I just think that, wherever these cryptids are coming from, there are, even with the Sasquatch and some of the other ones, there is a connection between all of them for some reason. There's a not far from where Skinwalker Ranch is, there's this bed and breakfast place called Strawberry Ranch or Strawberry something. And there is a show that they highlight this place, and they have as much craziness there as they have at Skinwalker Ranch. And they talk about, the one guy that owns it talked about, he saw either a Dogman or a Sasquatch, and he was on his horse. He tried to catch it, and this thing outran them on the guy on a horse. And he's talked about seeing, just like the people at Skinwalker Ranch, something along the lines of a portal opening and a being coming out of it. I just think these things are coming from somewhere else. But there is obviously the possibility that some of these things, again, could be created in a lab after one of them was killed or something. They always say that the technology that our government has is at the very least 100 years ahead of what the public has. I 100% agree with that. I just think, I don't think they're all 100% of them are malicious. So I had a video where a guy's dog had been reincarnated into a Dogman, and basically what occurred was the family had gone on a vacation in their Winnebago, and these Dogmen, an alpha, a white alpha, and this guy had a white German Shepherd. These things were running across a highway, and he turned the wheel to not hit them, and what happened was they ended up almost careening off the side of this bridge down into a huge gully and dying. Well, long story short, this alpha, this white Dogman, told the other ones to help him, basically without words, to save this family. And the reason I'm saying they believe it was reincarnation was because this thing ended up coming and putting its head in the window where the guy was driving it and made him pet it the way that his white German Shepherd used to pet it. So it's a really, emotional, touching story. I think it really happened, or it couldn't have. You never know, but it was at least a touching experience. I do believe that there are some beings that do have reincarnation, that they didn't get it right for whatever reason, and they're chosen to redo it. So there you go.
Yeah, we actually put that one in. You and I did a compilation months back with
That's
Carolyn
right.
and Mr. Yeah, that was actually the last segment in that whole video. I also put the link in that below as well, so people can check that whole compilation out.
I forgot about that.
Besides what happened to you, is there any story or any other thing that really stands out to you? Is that is probably the most frightening thing I've ever heard in my life?
Yeah, Josh, actually, one of the most disturbing interview I have ever done on Planet 412. You can go see it. It's actually called The True Near Death Dogman Story. I interviewed a very dear friend of mine. Now we've gotten close. Her name is Joe Stone. We've gotten, like I said, super close. She had a Dogman almost kill her and her ex-boyfriend. It actually killed and mauled his dog. It was trying to protect them. This thing actually was going through the outside of the house and ended up, if not for the police coming to the front of the house and pulling in, it had gotten to probably about that far from getting through the wall in the bathroom to killing them. That is, I do not doubt her story whatsoever. If you listen to it, I think you will agree with me. It took me back. It shook me. Check the thumbnail out. You'll see how it affected me. Joe Stone, 100%, in my opinion, telling the truth. And man, that was not an easy interview for me to do. I just wanted to tell you, as before, I'm honored to be on here with you, man. I love you. You're my brother. I appreciate being on here. Thank you. And I just want to tell everybody, if you head on over the Planet 412, a lot of new exciting things in 2025. There's a lot of videos already out, some new shorts out, but there's great things coming on, new stuff coming on, and it's going to be really exciting for 2025. So check us out at Planet 412, everybody.